I want to use a script as an extrovert. Second is, the effect is General Perkins has to get on a plane and fly to DC tonight to meet with the chief first thing in the morning. Okay, so he's going to have to get out here, but he's graciously going to stay here as long as his pilots can rest and still fly safely. He's also volunteered to take questions at the end. All right? I want you all to continue reading. So the other effect is, getting used to being in a formal dining environment during a guest speaker. You have the polite manners to be able to continue to eat your dinner. For those of you who have elected to eat desserts, eat desserts. Okay? We have written your names down. Right? And be quiet while you do so you can hear General Perkins. He's volunteered to talk for about 20 minutes or so about things that are important to him. He understands what General Twitty's talked about today. We know General Twitty teed up a few things about General Perkins for you. But let me just recap very quickly about this gentleman who we're privileged to have here tonight. He is a West Point class of 1980. He is on the verge in less than a month of transitioning from the Army, as am I. So we're both scared to death to go out there and be normal civilian people. We hear they're nice people. So it'll be interesting to see, because our entire adult lives have been dedicated to this profession. General Perkins and I had crossed paths very briefly a few times, but his impact to me, his emotional impact to me as a leader, someone I've always looked up to, started truly in combat. When I saw him roll out of the firefight, what we were calling Checkpoint Charlie at the time, just outside of the city called the Joff. And here is an armor officer who has an armored armada of tanks that can take just about anything from anybody in the world. And he's riding around in an aluminum 1990-something armored personnel carrier with Vietnam vintage stripes on it. And he pulls up out of the middle of a firefight. When he pulls up, he's got his CBC helmet on, he's got dust in his face. His crew looks like they've been through hell and back, and he sees me, he waves, and he smiles. Hi, Chris. And immediately I'm like, well, shit, we're going to win. That's all it took for me. And he got down and he told me what was going on. He turned the battle over to my battalion because we need to get him up to go deep, as you saw today in General Twitty's description of the battle. And so I've asked him to talk about that battle. Talk about his command post, talk about how he's gotten through these things and how he has leveraged his emotions and his emotional intelligence and his social intelligence as a leader to motivate people like me with a simple wave and a smile to make me feel like everything was going to be okay. And again, he and his wife Ginger, even though they're less than 30 days from transitioning out of the Army, he is still fighting the fight to the very last day he's in command, because that's the kind of character and that's the kind of man he is. So please welcome General David Perkins.
I generally walk around just to myself later, but I guess, well, actually, I guess this has a little bit of a range on it. I'll just do this because I don't want you all to be sort of transfixed by me staying out there. So, Chris, thanks for not only that gracious introduction, but having me out here. As I was talking to the folks at the table, and you're going to find out very quickly, some have already, as I always say, it's a big world, small army. You are going to run, that's what is really great about events like this. You will run into these people that are here this evening and this week for the rest of your military career, maybe the rest of your life. General U said, had Lieutenant General Twitty, who was one of my battalion commanders. I knew General Hughes when he was a battalion commander in the 101st, and we've worked together a lot since then, and that's just sort of how the Army runs, and one of the reasons that's why I've been at this for sort of the number of years I have is because of the relationships that you develop in the sense of teamwork and camaraderie that I am told is very difficult to get in any other endeavor other than this. So I guess Chris and I are about to find that out. And so I know very atypical for a Traineeship not to have any slides. I don't have any doctrinal manuals on hand, but I can get them very quickly. And I don't have prepared remarks because I usually don't ever. So what I did was I spoke with General U.S. a little bit before he came here and what he'd all been talking about. And you had Senator Ernst here, who actually is a great friend of the military. Her husband's retired Command Sergeant Major. I spent some time with her up on the hill at Fort Benning. I was there when she came for a visit. And then you had General Twitty, who was one of my battalion commanders, and I've worked with him a number of times since then. And I think General Robo was at Toronto, former Surgeon General of the Army, so I've worked with her quite a bit. So you got kind of an all-star cast. All-star cast both individually and the fact that you get a very wide swath of input of folks that deal with the military. But what I wanted to talk to you tonight is about, a simple subject, and that's leadership. Simple subject, and then it's one word. And it's like anything else. It's maybe not that hard to understand, but it's just really, really hard to do. Some things are hard to understand, but once you understand, they're easy to do. Leadership is one of those other things. You can take a look, and I think you went through ADP 6.2, the competencies and attributes, all that. It's not like rocket science. I got it. It's just really hard. But if you decide early on in your careers, which you are early on in your careers, you may say, wow, I'm about to graduate. I'm culminating my ROTC or West Point or cadet experience. So it's just beginning. If you decide early on that, you know what I want to be in the Army, and because people say, I want to be the best this, whether I'm going to be infantryman or artilleryman or cyber or signaleer or something like that, and want to go do X, Y, and Z. What I would advise you is a goal that is sort of universally applicable is say, what I really want to be is a good leader. What I really want to be is a good leader. And I want my soldiers to view me as a good leader, because we're talking at the table and they're saying, how do you develop a relationship with your soldiers and what are they looking for and everything? You know what your soldiers are looking for? A good leader. I mean, the soldiers are actually pretty easy people to please. They are very discerning critics, okay? But it's not that hard to figure out because all they want is good leadership. And there's lots of different kinds of people. I think you're all talking about emotional intelligence and introverts and experts and all that. That really has no bearing on the matter. They just want to know, are you a good leader? And they actually have a pretty simple metric that they go through, and we have the competencies and attributes and the various things, be, know, do, and you go through all those, and those are all fine. What I have found out, though, is when you first show up to your platoon or whatever section or whatever you end up leading, when you first get there, generally speaking, what your soldiers and non-commissioned officers, what they're trying to figure out what makes you tick, okay? Not necessarily, people kind of think you show up there, they're gonna like test me. How much do I know about this? How much do I know about that? I mean, generally you have to have, if you get lost every time you go to the field, that's not a good way to start things off. But you get lost sometimes, you just have to be able to recover. What they really are trying to figure out, though, is they're trying to figure you out. They're trying to figure out what makes you tick, and they're trying to figure out, why do you do what you do? What motivates you? Why are you leading the unit the way they are? What they're trying to figure out is, are you doing it for you? Are you doing it for your career progression? Are you doing it so that you get promoted? Are you doing it so you go to some fellowship or something like that? Or are you truly doing it for the benefit of the unit and them? It's that simple. And there's all kinds of indicators of it. But that's really what they want to know. Are you really in this for them? Are you in this for the Army? Are you in it to make them better, to make the unit better, develop people, etc. like that? And once they come to that conclusion of why you're doing what you're doing, The rest is kind of a fait accompli. And I'm telling from experience, one, if they figure out that what you are doing, what motivates you is what is best for the unit, what is best for the organization, what is best for individual soldiers. If they come to that conclusion, they almost will never question anything else. Even if you ask them to do something which may get them killed, they will just take your orders and follow them, really without question. Once they start to wonder what your motivation is, then they're going to question why we're doing what we're doing, because they're not sure that you have the best of intentions. And I'll just lay that out to you, because I get that question a lot, like, how do I assert myself in front of a platoon? How do I, engage people when I initially get there? And I'm just passing on my personal experience, and quite honestly, what they tell us in survey after survey. And so if you saw the ADP 622, I gotta push doctrine while I'm here, because that's what I do. One of my jobs, the doctor guy. So we have competencies and attributes, and the attributes are things about you, what we want you to be and know. We want you to be innovative, we want you to know expertise, we want you to be fit, etc. like that. But then the competencies are what we want you to do. Develop others, lead from the front, develop esprit de corps, etc. And so every year, out of the Center for Army Leadership at Fort Leavenworth, we do the CASL study. And we query across the Army, active, Guard, and Reserve, E4 to Colonel. Because we really don't care what generals think anymore in the Army, but E4 and Colonel, and we say, look, we want you to answer some of these questions, and then the last question is kind of this free-form question. Describe the best leader you've ever worked for. Just in your own words, describe the best leader you've ever worked for. And they have no choice but to do that. Now, what I find most interesting about this, when I was a CAC commander, I found this question more interesting than all the others, is that I know most of the people in the Army, unlike you all, Cadet Command, don't read doctrine every night. Okay? And actually, I know most people in the Army, and I don't take it personally, they have no clue we even have leadership doctrine. They have no clue we even have an ADP on leadership. They absolutely have no clue that we have competencies and attributes on that. So they actually, and so they don't think that when they answer the question that there's a right or wrong answer, because they just figure that there's no right or wrong on this. They actually think that Perkins is interested in what they think. And they actually think, he asked me, so I'll answer to him. That actually makes the answer all the more interesting, because the fact of them not knowing that there's attributes of competency, not knowing that we have categories, and not knowing that we're going to take the responses and kind of bin them into various things, they just figure out, Perkins asked, I'll answer it. The majority of the answers come back in one category, without them even knowing that we have categories. That's actually more amazing. And the category is competencies. In other words, what do you do? Okay? Now, we know there are threshold level attributes. You have to have a level of military expertise. You have to be fit. You have to be innovative. You have to do that. But what they're really interested in is how do you take those attributes and array them in time and space and do something with them. Do you lead from the front? Do you develop others, etc. like that? What they're saying is, Lieutenant, you may have all the attributes in the world. I'm not really interested in your GPA. Okay? I'm not really maybe even interested in your rifle qualification score. What I'm interested in, are you making me a better marksman? Are you making our unit better? Etc. That actually was a little bit of an epiphany for the Army, because when I first got to Command Arms at Leavenworth, the CASL study goes out, and we got feedback back that there was a lot of toss-up leadership, micromanagement, toss-up leadership, and all that. Like, how could that possibly be? Well, if you look at the old OER system, in fact, if you look at even probably up to what you've been graded on now, what do we tend to grade you on? And the fact that you're here, just as a morning order, okay? Yeah. So you're here because you've been selected by your school as like one of the best, and you personally, to come represent this. we have graded you on what's your GPA, what's your PT score, how did you stack out, where are you on the OML, et cetera, like that. And so what we're finding is through our pre-commissioning courses and our OERs and everything, we were grading people on their personal attributes. How smart are you? How good are you at this? How good are you? The word "you" was in their life. And they were sitting back like, why is it we have so many self-centered officers? Because you get what you grade. And we said, you know what? We know there has to be threshold levels. You have to be competent. You have to be fit. You have to do those things. But what's really important for your soldiers is what do you do with those? So we've been developing your attributes here for 4 years now. What your soldiers want to know is they don't really care what school you went to or GPA. They want to know, are you going to take all the stuff you learned at Cadet Command or West Point, and are you going to turn it into something useful for somebody else? And for a lot of you, that is not necessarily what you have been rewarded for so far in your life. And I find that this is one of the transitions that young lieutenants, this is where they can first get off on a good footstep or a bad first step. And that is, can they make the transition from it's all about me and my GPA and my OML to, it's really not about me anymore. It's about my soldiers and how am I getting them better, so like that. And I am being graded on how well they do. If they do very well, if they get much better, then that means that I'm being a good leader. And what your soldiers want to know is, are you, to coin an old phrase, are you helping me be all I can be? Are you investing in me? And what they also want to know is, and this goes a long ways, when you are investing in them and supporting them, does it cost you something? Because if it doesn't cost you anything, they're like, whatever. They're not really putting themselves out. But they're like, wow, the LT really had to spend a lot of extra time doing this. The LT had to kind of go in front of the company commander, the battalion commanders for me and advocate for me when this bad thing happened, and stuff like that. If they realize that what you are doing is costing you something, it's costing you your reputation, maybe your standing, maybe your time, energy, stuff like that. In other words, you are sacrificing something that you hold dear to you. You are sacrificing it on their behalf. Once soldiers see that, and it only has to happen a couple of times, I'm telling you, your reputation will be gold among soldiers. Because they're like, that lieutenant, he or she put it all on the line for me. Not for them, not for you, but for me. And I'm telling you, they are looking at you from day one. They're looking at you to day one because there'll be a test. Okay, not necessarily, they won't orchestrate it. They may have a lot to do with it, but they won't orchestrate it to say, and then that will be sort of the moment of truth. And so I just laid this out here so you can start thinking about that before we pin these bars on you. Now, I understand that General Twitty talked a lot about attacking the Baghdad Thunder Run and various things like that, and he was a phenomenal commander and great company commanders and all that. And I worked very closely with General U.S. and Ben Hodges, my classmate from West Point, was his brigade commander. Great performing units like that don't happen by accident. They don't happen by accident. It takes a lot of time and a lot of investment early on in getting to really know and trust each other. I know you talk about trust. And trust is earned. You have to build trust and it is earned. It is not given out freely. And so both subordinate and superior have to trust each other, and they have to know each other. I know you've been having exercise about, do you know what makes this person tick? Do you know what makes that tick? What motivates them? That's one of the big things that you really have to come to grips with in training. In training, part of it is doing the task. Dismount drills or clearing a room or gunnery. That's important. And so you kind of got to get the training down with regards to doing the task. But the other thing equally important as training is getting to know other people. How do they make decisions? And we all make decisions differently. How do they take information? And how do they see the world? And so that's a big part of mission command. Understand, visualize, describe. Do you all have the same understanding of the problem set? Do you visualize, but we all visualize things differently. We just do. We're all different backgrounds, we have different personality types, so we just visualize things differently. So, I'm a big fan of Mission Command. One reason, it was the first thing we published when I came to trade on, but so, kind of ownership. I'd be happy to defend that later at the bar, and if you have interest with it. Understand, visualize, describe, then directly and assess. Can you describe your visualization to people such that it results in a common understanding? Even though you visualize things differently, are you able to describe it? Remember, it's not understand, visualize, tell. It's not tell, it's describe. You describe the visualization of the problem, the solution, in a way that people have the common understanding. Because once you can do that, then you can then empower each other because you have a common understanding of the problem. There's no way around it. That just takes a lot of time and practice in training. So I would tell you, as a brigade commander, so I had 3 maneuver battalions, artillery battalion, and non-modular, so you had all the bits and pieces out there. And then I got a couple other battalions attached to us. We got sent to the desert in September of '02 and lived in tents until March of '03 until we attacked. So we did a huge amount of training. And a lot of times I would just bring the command post out. I would maneuver the brigade command post, and then Colonel Twitty, Colonel DeCamp, Colonel Schwartz would have theirs moving. And part of it was me getting to understand them and they understand me like this. When I say this is what I mean. This is my visualization. When you do this, then I need to understand what that means to you. So I would tell people, sometimes as a company commander, armor battalion would be at Homebels, which is our CTC in Germany. What I would do is take my tank and come up like an IV line behind a company. Now, I'm not spying on them, micromanaging people. There's misconception about mission command. What I'm just trying to do is understand how they visualize a battlefield. So I might come up behind Alpha Company. He doesn't know I was there. Again, not spying. I'm looking out there, and the bad guys are there. The Op 4, we're fighting them. And there's Alpha Company. He's down to 1 tank. He's fixing bayonets. He's pulling out his 9mm, shooting guys on the front slope. Hey, Alpha 6, what's going on? No problem. Got this under control. We are kicking ass. Taking names. Like, okay, your visualization of success, I got it. I go to Bravo Company, there's one Op 4 guy with a broken leg caught up in the wire. Sir, we're being overrun, commit the reserve. Like, really, that's a crisis? So now I know Alpha Company's view of success, now I know Bravo Company's view of success. So when they call me up and they're saying something like, okay, I got the visualization. We have different visualizations, but now I understand. Okay, if Alpha Company says he's being overrun, it's like too late. My last transmission. Bravo Company, you can hold off. Because now I understand what their visualization is of a problem or not a problem. That's very, very important. Because what you have to do is first of all, you have to learn your boss. How does your boss take information? How does he or she process things? And the same thing to your subordinates. Because if your subordinates don't understand you, not that they don't trust you, but they're trying to figure out sort of when you say something, what does that mean? And so the way you just overcome that is repetition and getting to know each other and exercises and training and stuff like that. So that by the time, as a brigade commander, when we crossed the line of departure, I knew Lieutenant Colonel Twitty exceptionally well. I knew this battalion. I knew all my battalion commanders. I knew all my company commanders. And so we could have very short radio conversations. Hey, you do this, and so like that. Roger, I got it. I know what you mean, etc. And it really facilitated a high rate of mission command. It allowed you to do things at a very high tempo, faster than the Army can react to. But it takes a huge amount of investment of time and a lot of personal energy. A lot of personal energy in talking with folks and kind of come to grips and kind of wargaming how things will happen. But it pays off in the long run, and it also empowers your soldiers, because what they do is they start to get confidence in you as their leader, and they want to be well led, and they want to have confidence in you. They might not have confidence in themselves, but they want to have confidence in you. And if they have confidence in you, then that overcomes their lack of confidence. And it's very interesting, actually, Chris, General U.S, was telling me this story about I remember in the shop where we ran into each other. But after we got Baghdad, then no good deed goes unpunished. We went out to Fallujah after that. And this is before Stop Loss, Stop Move, so all my company commanders were changing out. And so I went to one of the company commanders, I went to each of their changes of command, and he changed command, and I said, congratulations. So his OER was written, everything like that. So, too late now if you want to blow smoke, because you should have done that earlier. And so he's coming and goes, sir, I just want to tell you one thing. He says, in the company, as we're attacking up the Baghdad and going on the front of running all that, he says, and here's another thing, and a couple of anecdotes about that. He said, you're in your 113, he says, so we like track you around the battlefield. We didn't have all the high-speed stuff we have now. But like, hey, Spartan 6 is here, he's coming there, and stuff like that. So, tracking the boss. Nothing changes. And he says, and so we might be in the heart of a firefight or something really bad going on, and then you would pull up. You're talking to us and we're like, wow, the commander's here, I guess everything's okay. Because everything's going to work out. What I didn't tell him is like, I actually have no clue what's going on. And I drove up here to see. I can't figure this out. It's fire force. In their mind, they're like, hey, well, it's under control. He's here. It's like everything's good to go, etc. like that. I didn't know that. I wasn't doing it for show. I really was clueless. And so I was going out there trying to figure out what was going on. Because you kind of have to do that on the battlefield at the time. What they were doing is, hey, he's here, it's fine, he seems to have everything in control, etc. like that. And it's a huge combat multiplier. I didn't realize that was a signal being sent. So as I tell folks all the time, even before that, some leaders think that their job is, when everyone's running around with their hair on fire, their job is to run down and start squirting lighter fluid around. Going to energize the situation. My experience is when the stuff hits the fan, we don't need any more energy, okay? What we need is clear, calm thinking and kind of getting people on the right path and moving out and getting things done like that. That's what your soldiers want. They're like, okay, he or she, they've got this thing figured out, we're putting the pieces together, etc. like that. They've got a plan, they're working through it. A great example of that, and usually I guess General Twitty talked about it, when the day Objective Moeller and Curly, where he was, and I think he talked about the R2 convoy being hit, and casualties, all that going on there. At the same time, the tactical operation of the brigade was hit by a missile, a Ababil missile, surface to surface. And I was we only had a couple of cell phones in the whole brigade to talk on. I was talking to my brigade XO. At that time, Lieutenant Colonel Eric Wesley, soon to be Lieutenant General Wesley, currently the commander down at Fort Benning. He was XO, and I hear like this large explosion or noise. I didn't know what it was. It could just be static. He goes, hey, sir, we have an event here. I'll get back with you. All right, so we'll do the thing in Baghdad or something like that with General Twitty and Colonel, at that time, Colonel Twitty to camp in Schwartz. And he comes back on, he goes, hey, sir, we're going to be out the net for a little bit. You got to take the fight there. So I had an Air Force ALO with me, and I had my artillery battalion commander. So I said, okay, because usually the talk usually does air and artillery stuff. Well, what had happened is this surface-to-surface missile had hit the tactical operations center, landed on the hood of General Wesley's Humvee, landed on the hood of his Humvee, left a hole 10 feet wide and 10 feet deep. It burned 35 vehicles to the ground and 25 casualties. The entire top was destroyed, burned to the ground. A lot of casualties, senior people, and stuff like that. And all he said is, sir, we have an incident here. I'm going to have to deal with it. I'll get back with you. Because he's like, I can't distract the brigade commander. He's in Baghdad doing this, etc. like that. So he and HAC commander kind of divide forces, evacuate casualties here. He says, I'm going to salvage a couple of 5.77s. We'll take them about a mile down the road, get away, because there's a huge fireball, and work through this. He comes on the net about 2 hours later. He goes, sir, we're back up. We'll continue the fight. It wasn't until later that evening he called me back and said, sir, I didn't want to bother you with this, because I knew you were fighting the fight. But he said, we just lost a lot of people. The tank is destroyed. I said, wow. And then he said, but we reestablished ourselves and stuff like that. He says, my concern is, we had better reporters, and so it's going to be on the TV that the tank is destroyed, and of course, if you're in the brigade, you know who's in the top. It's all of the senior people, brigade staff, sergeant majors, things like that. So quickly, people will start asking questions, which they did, and then activating the wise back in the rear and everything like that. But again, his great example of just really a calming presence under a huge amount of stress, where the wheels could have come off, saying, my job as a leader is not to squirt lighter fluid on people. Job as a leader is to come up with a plan, etc. And because he had the respect of everyone, they're like, okay, he's got it. He's got a plan. I can get through this. I mean, did you have everything figured out? No. I mean, did you ever war game anything like that? Not exactly like that. But they sort of have confidence in people, like, we'll get through this. We'll get through this. We have confidence in each other because everybody in this unit is in it for the right reasons. They have the right motivation. They want to do the best for the soldiers. They want to accomplish the mission, etc. And so there was no second thoughts about it. That because they are great leaders. Okay, that's what your soldiers are trying to figure out. Because what they are looking for is somebody that can see things they cannot see. What they are looking for is somebody who has a bigger picture than they have, the soldiers, and can put things in context and say, look, there's a lot of other things going on, we can pull this together, we can make it happen, and they have seen you do it time and time again. They have seen you do it time and time again. And so it builds confidence. So, to put that in perspective of how much they look at that. So one of the questions I have the table here, well, I'll let you ask. You can ask the first question. So what was the question they always ask? Well, my biggest failure, right? So they said, everyone wants to know that. I don't know why it is. So what did you screw up the most? Dying to hear. I thought that would actually I always would get it from cadets and second lieutenants. Actually, I didn't realize how much everybody is consumed with that question. And so until the first time I taught the pre-command course. So at the pre-command course, we hold at Fort Leavenworth every month. It's all your future bosses, battalion and brigade commanders to be, and their sergeant majors. So it's all the battalion commanders, brigade commanders, and command sergeant majors. If you're going to be a battalion and brigade commander, you go to Fort Leavenworth for a couple of weeks. We do this every month. I mean, different group, because the Army's got a lot of battalion and brigades. And so they go through this course, everything. And so I was like, commander Fort Leavenworth. They said, hey, Perkins, you're going to go talk to the pre-command course. So it's a 3-star time. So I'm passing this on so you don't have to wait until you're a 3-star. So I'm sure everybody in here is going to be here. We're going to be here tonight. I'm like, this is going to be great. I get to talk to the pre-command course. I'm like, finally the Army is going to leverage my vast amounts of knowledge and influence I have. Put it to work and really impress these future leaders. So my first time I go to the pre-command course, I'm seeing it the way it was because of ages and generation and everything. I would look out, I get the roster ahead of time, and there would be people in the pre-command course that were lieutenants in my battalion when I was a battalion commander. And I was amazed. Wow, Lieutenant Jones? What are you doing? He goes, sir, it's Lieutenant Colonel Jones. Oh, that can't be. It was just a couple of years. You're a battalion. I'm like, yeah, sir, it was a long time ago. What they're telling me is I'm old as hell. First I know, the CGC's next door, you're in the wrong building. I'm serving the pre-command course. So that was the first shot to the gut that I'm old as hell, that guys that were second lieutenants are now going to be battalion commanders. So then afterwards, I said, hey, let's get together, we'll talk war stories, because that's why I stayed in the Army, talk war stories. They're like a fine wine, they get better with age. So we pull aside, hey, how's everything going? It's going great, etc. And he said, and this happens all the time. All the time. In fact, it happened just a couple of weeks ago, not pre-command course, but with another battalion commander who happens to be in trade-off. He's a recruiting commander. But the story unfolds like this every time. Sir, yeah, we battalion this. I'm like, have you kind of contacted this guy? Yeah, this guy, we can still contact. And they say, invariably, it always comes up. Sir, do you know what I remember most about being in your battalion? Do you remember what I remember most about your command? I'm thinking to myself, wow, there were really so many highlights. What a fantastic command. We were like Top Gun in Europe. When we got force ass under rotation, because that's how I remember it. Took the best sure you remember for best, I don't know, EIB platoon or something like that. I'm thinking, well, to myself, there are just so many highlights about my outstanding career. I'd hate to pick just one. You tell me. What do you remember most? And the answer is the same every single time. It just happened a couple of weeks ago. Sir, what I remember most about being your battalion is when, fill in the blank, but it's the same genre. What I remember most was when this really bad thing happened, we thought you were going to get relieved. Every time. Like, what? Oh, sure, yeah. And then this happened. I'm like, that's what you remember? And then, sir, don't you remember? I mean, the CG came out, it was horrible. We still talk about it today. Perkins is dodging a couple of bullets, but he's going down on this one. No way he's going to work his way out of this. So that was a huge enlightening thing to me. First of all, not only what is the one thing I screwed up, that's all anybody remembers. The second thing is that I'm thinking, like, you were a second lieutenant, I was a lieutenant colonel, like you were even paying attention to that? I can't even imagine you didn't even pay attention to that. Like, oh no, this happened, etc. And then the third part that came out that really got my attention, he said, and you know what I remember about that? You did this. You said this. This is how you treat this person. You did this to Alpha Company, Bravo Company. What he was saying is, we are mildly interested in your command philosophy when you're in our climate controlled room, everyone's been fed, air conditioning, stuff like that. We're mildly interested. When you are about to be relieved, you have our undivided attention. That's where we really find out what you're made of. So you can talk all this talk about command, climate, positive leadership, mission command, like that, but when you have something to lose, when maybe you're about to be relieved, how are you going to act now? How are you going to treat people? How are you going to interface with people, etc., like that? And they recount this time and time again. All these various things. I'm like, yeah, I remember that, etc. Oh yeah, sir. Then this, and they start going into excruciating detail. I'm like, okay, that's enough. I got it. And join 2 sport groups to get through that one. But so what they were telling me is that's when we're really interested in who you are, because what they're inferring that when everything is going well, I don't really need leaders. I just need leaders when really bad things are happening. That's when I need a leader. When really bad things are happening. I'm on autopilot when the sun's shining, we have plenty of chow, nothing's broken, everything's going smooth. I don't need adult leadership then. I just need a leader when bad things are happening, because see, when bad things are happening, what he was saying is, all eyes are on you. You know, we're paying attention to you, Lieutenant Colonel, us second lieutenants. So that was kind of an epiphany for me, that they pay that much attention, and they pay that much attention when really bad things happen. So if you admit it, think back in your past, are we always on our best, maybe when things aren't going exactly our way, things aren't going well? Maybe that's not when we're at our best. So I'm telling you, so when you think you're having a bad day and everything's going wrong, don't think of it as a bad day, just think of it as a leader development opportunity. Because I guarantee you, everybody's paying attention to you. Everybody's paying attention. Another time equally sort of is enlightening is that I was in trade-off command, I was a 4-star, and one of my former captains in my brigade when I was a brigade commander, so he was a staff officer at the time, so I'm a brigade commander, and there's a battalion, and there's staff officers, so they're definitely down the salt lines. So he's a staff officer at the time. He then gets, years go by, he's not going to be a battalion commander. He sends me an invitation to change of command, I can't go, so I sent an email, I said, well, okay, sorry, I can't go, actually, I was going to go on 3 command course, and I got to go do this, and stuff like that, but I said, I knew you had great potential, and you're a great captain, everything like that. He said, sir, I just wanted to let you know that I got one of those little green books that you all here. And the title of it is Colonel Perkins. And he says, and so what I did when I was down inside the bowels of your command, I had a book. And for 2 years, I just wrote down everything you did and said. You'd be in the motor pool, you'd be on a range, or in Iraq, I just wrote down everything you did and said. And then now that I'm going to take command, I'm just going to open the book and do what's in the book. Whoa. I said, could you send that book to me first? Don't send it to the IG. So, I mean, that's pretty daunting. That I got, we really got some good doctrine out there that you might want to read first on leadership. But, so thinking somebody's actually, I say, when you're a leader, they're actually figuratively and literally keeping book on you. I mean, that's pretty daunting when you think about it. Going back to the battalion example that I get all the time when things are screwed up, you have to understand when this comes up, it's not like they have a list. They're like, if I ever see Perkins again, I'm going to relive in gory detail all this stuff that happens. It's just coming off the top of their head. It's just ingrained in their memory. The scary part of this is I was a battalion commander in 1996. Okay, it's 22 years ago. Okay, so that means they have remembered this for over 20 years. It's ingrained in their memory. They don't have cheat cards or anything like that. For 20 years, they have remembered, what I did when I was in charge when really bad things happened. Because that's all they really cared about. They only cared about what Perkins did when bad things were happening. They don't remember the good things. They just remember that because they're like, and guess what? They've heard that that's when we need leadership. And so I pass this on to you because a lot of people think good leadership is about everything going perfect all the time and nothing going wrong. That's not what good leadership is about. In fact, good leadership is about really taking kind of a soup sandwich and making something out of it. That's what good leadership is about. And to do that, you generally have to put something that you value at risk. You generally have to put something you value at risk, your reputation, your time, your whatever it is like that. But when you do that, my experience is they'll remember for 22 years. That's a hell of an impact. That's a hell of an impact for people. Or they'll have a little book with your name on it. And when they get the job that you get, what they're going to do is open that book. That book may be literal or figurative. So if you don't think you have impact as a leader, as a lieutenant, a captain, whatever level, I'm telling you, you are vastly underestimated. I always tell folks, we always underestimate how much influence we have from us below. We're always looking about, well, if the guys up at company headquarters, if they could just square this way, I wouldn't have this problem. From you and below, to your soldiers, you are the army. If you're a second lieutenant, you are the big army. You and the platoon sergeant, you're a big army to them. They want to hear, well, trade-off screwed this whole thing up. If you can only fix this, right, we'd have it out. They don't want to hear about that. They don't know spell trade-off. They want to know is, LT, what are you going to do? You're in charge. You're the leader. What are you doing? Well, what are you going to do to make this thing better? How are you going to solve this problem? That's all they want to know. They don't want excuses or anything like that. And they're actually very forgiving of any shortcomings you have, except for hypocrisy. They will not forgive that. If you are not who you say you are, and you're not a leader of values, that is sort of unforgivable. If you get lost, you don't hit a bullseye or something like that, they're like, whatever, it's an LT, you got to train him or her on. That's trainable. But if you're a hypocrite, and you're not a person of values, they don't trust your motivation, and they think that they can't trust you, I don't care how good you are. I don't care how good you are with your personal attributes, you will not overcome that leadership defect. And I've learned that. I wish I'd figured out all this myself. Where I learned from? I learned from my soldiers at work. They tell me that stuff. So what we're paying attention to is this. This is what we remember. On and on and on and on. All of those things, time after time after time after time. And so the earlier you sort of understand that and come to grips with it, I'm telling you, the easier your transition is going to be from cadet, fill in the blank, to lieutenant, fill in the blank, to major, colonel, general, whatever it is. Because guess what? The test never changes. It's not, like you're in biology or whatever course you're in now that every semester we get a new test or something like that. I would tell you from lieutenant to four-star general, the test never changes. It's the same test every time you go someplace. They're going to try to figure those things out. And once they figure them out, if you come out thumbs up, you're good to go. If you come out like this, it's almost unrecoverable. So what I'd like to do now is open up for questions. Yes, sir.
Sir, I came from UIUC, University of Illinois Advanced Training. So as far as I know, the officer promotion process doesn't have any space for subordinate feedback. And so if the Army really values that subordinate feedback, why isn't it more incorporated into leadership promotion?
So, there is now. Go ahead, you can sit down. Actually, part of it based on the council survey. So, a couple of things off in the horizon. It started, first of all, at the General Officer Board. And so once you become a General Officer, all General Officers have a 360 feedback. And you have to go 2 ranks down, and then they can go all the way up. So General U.S. can provide feedback on me every year. 1 star to whatever, can provide feedback on me, and then I have to do 2 ranks down and stuff like that. So from 1 star to 4 star, we do a 360, General Officers do a 360 every year. And there's only like 10 questions, okay? And they're not like, well, you know, there's a lot of like yes, no, like promote, yes or no. Yes or no, okay. Warrior ethos, yes or no. Not about that 3.5, you know, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. And then you have a block at the bottom, you know, things this officer needs to prove and things they, you know, need to sustain or something like that. And what happens is that all goes into the General Officer Management Office, and they sort of rank all the generals, and you know, 1 to 300 or whatever, and in your branch, in your this, you're ranked out this, and it uses for self-edification for you. And you know, at the 4-star level, we kind of choose who are going to get command jobs. Like commands are a big thing for 2 stars, command, recruiting command, division command, etc. And so the General Officer Corps has 360 evals. What we started doing now is we moved it down. You have the MSAF, which is a 360 that everyone has to take, multi-source assessment, feedback. But that, you kind of choose the people on that. Battalion and brigade commanders, we have a mandatory 360 feedback that we, the Army, run. So when you become a battalion and brigade commander, or when you're a company commander, you will provide feedback on your battalion commander and brigade commander. So all general officers have a 360. It is just within the General Officer Corps. So 1 stars to 4 stars do 360 amongst themselves. The battalion and brigade commanders have 360 feedback within their commands. Going all the way down below that, part of it is a scale thing. You know, how do we scale it? But there is an MSAF that you can do. And when you take command, or even at other times, you can conduct, and I do this often every time I go into a unit, and 180 days after I'm there, you can do a command climate survey. You do it up to the IG channels, and they'll do a command climate survey, and you can get feedback there. So there are plenty of ways to get feedback, but the Army has mandated 360 feedback for battalion, brigade, and all general officers. We may migrate it down later, but right now sort of MSAF's working for us, and so we have, at all levels, there are mechanisms to get 360 feedback. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, Cadet Maddox, United States Military Academy. I have a bit of a lead up to this question, and it's Mission Command, just to warn you. Okay.
Warn you.
General Milley recently published a memo that talks about the effectiveness of Mission Command in our contemporary force. And as you may know, it was found that junior leaders often said Mission Command was a difficult standard to obtain because of micromanagement and a perceived priority of protecting one's career over underwriting prudent risk for the betterment of the organization. What can we do as future leaders to change this culture for our future subordinate leaders?
Yeah, so here's my recommendation on that. So mission command occurs at all levels. We only have one manual, not just because we're lazy and trade off on public, but it's for privates and generals. And this is kind of like what I said. You own from you down. Okay? You own in the Army from you down. So what I always tell people is don't get too concerned about the folks above you. I mean, you can try to influence it. But I'm a big proponent of mission command. Not just because the manual came out of our organization. But, so you can drive it at all levels. So let's say you work for a boss that hasn't read the book yet. What I recommend, and I've worked for a number of people, I've worked for joint service officers and joint assignments and mission command, et cetera. But you can kind of take hold on it, because what we want mission command to do is seize, retain, exploit the initiative. Gives a position of relative advantage, encourage risk taking, on and on. You don't read the book. So part of this is you need to seize, retain, and exploit the initiative. So you can take the environment that you're in, and I do this. In fact, I'll do it tomorrow when I'm at the Pentagon with the chief and the secretary and others. So the first part of mission command is understand, visualize, describe. That's where it starts. That's how you can start breaking through sort of the micromanagement aspect of it. And so I'll go up there to a briefing and I'll say, okay, Chief and Secretary, this is not a decision brief, this is an understanding. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you my understanding of the problem to make sure we're on the same sheet of music, that it's your understanding of the problem. Then what I'm going to do is give my visualization of how we think we ought to solve it so that you understand my visualization. So I'm going to describe my visualization. What you're doing is you're walking your boss or your peers through your thought process, because that's what really mission command is. Mission command is shared understanding. That's what it is. It's not the lack of being able to tell somebody to do something. It is developing shared understanding. So you've got to build that understanding, either if you're the boss or the subordinate. And then what I tell folks, you know, I was a division commander in Iraq, for instance, and going to brief MNFI, the 4-star, you know, they'd make a slide for me, and blah, 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 and the last, for me to brief the 4-star, at the end, the last slide would be guidance. And I go, look, I'm not going up there to ask for guidance. I'm going to go out there and ask for permission to execute my recommended course of action based on my visualization. So I'm going to take the initiative to say, sir, I think this is the problem. I kind of have an idea of what I want to do. Can I get you to direct me to do that? What I find is where mission command breaks down is when there's a lack of dialogue between senior and subordinate. There's a lack of common understanding. So then people just get into do this, etc. That's why mission command is a lot of effort, because you've got to walk folks through, both your boss and your subordinate, and say, is this the problem? Do you understand this is the problem? Well, this, you know, here it is. And a lot of times I say, you know, the most important thing about solving a problem is defining the problem. I find when people have different viewpoints of the solution, it's because they have a different understanding of the problem. It's not that they have a different understanding of how to run the Army, it's just they're focusing on two different problems. That's why there's two different answers. And if folks had spent the time to come to an understanding of the problem, then actually you get a common visualization. So I don't really, I know this sounds defensive as a 4-star general to say people are uncomfortable with taking risks, or they're looking out for their careers or something like that. I'm sure that's the case in some aspects of it. But I think what their apparent lack of willingness to take risk is because they either don't understand the problem or they don't understand it the same way you do. And that's a very important thing for leaders to understand. That's one of your main jobs, is you are the key understander. Okay, you are the key visualizer. You are the key describer of your visualization. And so a lot of times when I'm at the pre-command course, battalion commanders, brigade commanders say, hey sir, what should you were a division commander once, what should I as a commander talk to the division commander about? What topics? I said, pretty simple, commander topics. Don't talk about staff topics. Talk about commander topics. You're a commander. You talk about commander things. Now what are commander things? Depends. Things that staff can't solve. Oh gosh, this is a big help. But what it was saying is, if it has got to the point where the staffs don't understand the problem, then the commander has to jump in, or the platoon leader in your case. So I'll give you an example. So I'm in Iraq as division commander up north. We're repositioning all that. High demand, low density asset is medevac helicopters. Kind of a sacred agreement we have with soldiers. They'll be inside the golden hour. American soldier gets killed, immediately they all have the best medical and capability available to them in the world as soon as we get them. And that's kind of a sacred bond, I think, with American soldiers, and do exceptionally well at that, better than anybody else. American soldiers know it. And that's why they take risks, because they know we will go to any length to get the medical assistance. Great medics on the battlefield. And so we're looking at medevac helicopters, and I'm bringing everybody in, and they're like, well, you know, this prevailing wheel, golden hour means you can get there within that hour, which medically is high rate of survival, so you can get a medical support within an hour. And so we're working through all this, and OR rates, helicopters, all that. And they say, and so the staff's working, they said, sir, okay, because I have all these stupid sayings, it drives them nuts, but they're like, sir, this is moved from a staff problem to a commander problem. Why is that? Because we can't get the folks in Baghdad to agree with us, because we think we need 10 medevacs, and they say we need 8. So So we're arguing back and forth. We say 10, they say 8. We say 10, we say 8. Okay, lay out the document, stuff. Okay, we'll figure it out. I said, okay, I'm going to go up there and talk to the commander, 18th Airborne Corps Commander, Lieutenant General Frank Helmet, great American. So I'm looking for 18th Airborne Corps. So I called General Helmet, hey sir, it's Dave. We got an issue here. What I like to do is, fly up the back end and kind of walk them through it. Okay, Dave, come on up. So we got this table full of like all these experts, and MNFI, the 4-star headquarters, like the Corps surgeon and the aviation brigade commander and the this guy and that guy. Going around, and I'm at the end, the Holy Infantry Division commander here. We kind of go around the table. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, the problem is this and this, and 4th Division wants too many helicopters. They want 10. We think it's 8, and the surgeon, I'm sure a great surgeon, has this New England Journal of Medicine article about this and about that, and quick auditors, stuff like that, and the aviation brigade and this, and railing winds and OR rate and all that kind of stuff, and big volumes of information. They kind of get around. I'm an infantry division commander, so I travel light. So General Helmet goes, so Dave, what do you have to say for yourself? Because, so 12 against 1. I said, sir, I just have one piece of paper. I just have one piece of paper here. I don't have New England Journal of Medicine. I don't have these aviation stats. I don't have all that stuff like that. He said, I just have one piece of paper. The piece of paper says, every service member the United States military will be within, if they're in combat, 1 golden hour radius of medevac support, unless they get a personal waiver signed by me, signed William Gates, Secretary of Defense. So I said, so sir, we can go down to 8 helicopters as long as we get a hold of the SecDef and he signs off on it. So let's get him on the phone. Who's with me? We all just need a waiver. How hard can that be? Everything's possible in the Army with a waiver. Should be at work now. DC time. Well, nobody followed me to the phone. But see, the problem was, nobody had identified the problem. The problem had nothing to do with the New England Journal of Medicine. The problem had nothing to do with the ORAs. The problem was, unless you're going to get a waiver from the Secretary of Defense, you have to do this. So at the end of it, General Helmet goes, I guess the answer is 10. So you could say initially, well, it's lack of command, they're telling you this and this and this. The problem was, it was a lack of understanding of the problem. It was an ill-defined problem. So my job as a commander wasn't necessarily to argue, it was to provide clarity to the problem. I've looked at this, I haven't looked at any of that, sir, I just have this one piece of paper. And unless we get a waiver, I gotta have all these guys have to be within an hour, medevac, and that's 10 helicopters. So my advice to you is, don't get concerned on what your boss is not doing. What you need to focus on is what can you do to get your boss to understand your visualization of the problem. Or what can you do to get his or her visualization so you understand the problem. And I find once you have common understanding of the problem, actually, it's amazing how quickly the answers converge on the right way. Other questions? Be one actual. Oh, way back. There we go.
Sir, Cadet Peters, Federal University of Evansville. In regard to the key tests that you have been unveiled and discussed the past year or so, the Army Readiness Combat Test, how will that affect readiness in the future because of the equipment needed to take it, and how will that affect moving away from FOBs in deployed environments?
So, in fact, I was just exchanging email with my battle buddy, General Abrams, the Force Comm Commander, on the airplane coming here. So we are still working through that. The test, right now, it's an Army physical fitness test as a requirement. So there's a number of tests in the Army. There's different purposes. So we have the OPAT, which is to determine which branch you get when you come into the recruiting center, and you probably all took it to get your branches here. We have the Army physical fitness test, which is an indicator of general level of physical fitness. It's not a test to do any one specific task, but it's a general indication of physical fitness. It is gender and age specific, the APFT, because the DoD instruction defining physical fitness is defined as age and gender specific. In other words, a physically fit 60-year-old is different than a physically fit 16-year-old. That's the definition of it. What we are talking about in the various tests we're looking at there is, do you have a Do you have a test that is geared toward operational tasks that you have to do in the battlefield, you know, rock marches, etc., like that? Because the APFT is a general indicator of physical fitness. And then if you do, the big questions are, first of all, how much equipment does it take? Because when I first came in the Army, we had the five event PT test, you had a horizontal ladder, you had run, dodge, jump, so you had to have a site to do that. And that was a problem. One of the reasons we went away from it, because you had to have ladders and pits and all that kind of stuff for run, dodge, jump. So we went away from it to what we have now, because I'm really taking equipment. So the one is, how equipment intensive is it? The second thing is, do you make it gender and age neutral, or do you make it gender and age specific? In other words, does, you know, a 60-year-old have to do this pass, sitting there on push-ups, sit-ups, or whatever they are, as a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old, I guess, etc., like that. So you got to talk through that, and do you make it gender specific or gender non-specific? So there's a lot of, there are the policy issues of it, and then there's the mechanical overhead, and then the third thing is, what is the purpose of it? And I always tell people, how to make people stronger, fly higher, jump faster, etc. What you have to know is its legal ramifications. Is it a condition for service? Is it a condition for service? In other words, can I keep you out of the Army for failing it? So a lot of units will have special things you have to do. I was in 18th Airborne Corps. We had certain things, 12-hour rock march, various things you have to do, but they couldn't keep you out of the Army for doing it because it's not a condition of service. It's a standard for that unit, and et cetera. So we're trying to decide, is it a condition for service, or do we do it by MOS? Like, here's one test for this MOS, here's another test for this MOS. Or do you say, yeah, but when you take an infantry battalion, you have a whole bunch of MOSs. So is it icon specific? So when you say, if you're an infantry battalion, everyone does this, regardless of MOS. If you're an artillery battalion, everybody does this. The challenge with that is there are lots of kinds of battalions and brigades in the Army. You'd be surprised how many different kinds of battalions and brigades in the Army. So how many different kind of categories do we have? And so there's a huge administrative overhead with this. So we are working through it. So nothing's going to change tonight. Knock on wood. And so we're just looking at what we are trying to do is increase the physical fitness of the Army, specifically reducing the non-deployable part of the Army. We want to make people more resilient. We want them to be in a sustained physical fitness program so they're not broken all the time. They're not non-deployable. Because we have a huge non-deployable population, which is a huge burden on the Army, because they're all in the Army drawing a paycheck, counting against our end strength, and then you can't deploy them. So we're trying to get after that. This is one of the reasons for that. All right, one last burning question, if it's a burden. Well, you already had a question right here. Go ahead.
So I'm Cadet Williams, sir. I don't think it's a question that the conventional phase of the Iraq War went exceptionally well to include the Thunder Run, but I was wondering, when you were in Baghdad, was there a plan for post-Saddam Iraq? What was the plan? Why did it not work out the way it intended? And if you could go back to the 2003 version of yourself, sir,
Yeah.
what would you tell them to have done differently to facilitate that transition of power?
Yeah, loaded question. It's the whole phase 4 thing. I wasn't in on the planning for that. I would say that, so I tend to reserve all criticism to myself and my unit, etc. I would tell you that the phase 4 thing probably wasn't as blocked as it needed to be. We'll leave it at that. I think what you had is a lot of assumptions that did not bear fruit, did not bear out. So here's a lesson. When you make a plan, you've gone through it, you go through it ad item when you go to see, you'll see how that. We have the MDMP process, military decision-making process. One of the things you have to do very initially are facts and assumptions, okay? That word assumption is a loaded topic. What you have to do is you have to make a list of assumptions. As they start to be confirmed or denied, whether being true is, then you probably have to readjust your plan. So if you made all these assumptions and now, no, that didn't work out, that didn't work out, that didn't work, well, are we going to change the plan? Because the plan was based on that being true. Now that's not true. Now we have to adjust. So you have to make assumptions because you'll never know everything going into the plan. You just have to. You never get off square one. But then after you make the plan, one of the things you have to pay the closest of attention to as a leader is the assumptions. What assumptions did I make And you have to have thought through is, what am I going to do if that assumption does not pan out? You just can't wish it to be true once it's clear that it's not true. And so if I had to give a broad characterization of probably some of the challenges post phase 3 OF1, is there a lot of assumptions were made, maybe for good reasons, by a lot of smart people, and then they started to be confirmed as not true, as not happening. And this is one of the problems that people, once you make a plan, they have a lot of pride of ownership in it, and they think they can will it to happen. And I'm a big fan of, strong-willed people, it makes it happen, but at some point, you have to come to grips with it and say, this is not going to work out this way. And that's a hard thing to do. So one of the things you have to do going into the planning process is say, people tend to look for indications that they have a good plan. I would say focus on indications that you have a crappy plan. Because that's when things really go bad. You need good leaders. So you have to assume that there's some failure in your planning. And what you're paying attention to as a leader is when this plan's about to fail, not, all the signs that I can cherry pick and say it's going to go well. And so I think that's a universal lesson learned. What would I do differently if I had to do it all again? Back to Michigan, I would understand what I was getting into much more than I understood. I was an Armored Brigade combat team leader, so what did I focus on? Fire, maneuver, artillery, tanks, rallies, all that stuff, and folks did an amazing job at that. What's going to happen after the regime falls, we get there, something like that, I sort of figured there was a grand master plan, etc. like that. Did not understand the Saddam regime and the control measures they had and all that kind of stuff. So once, that's one of the things in Mission Command, seems we tend to exploit the initiative. One of the things you have to do to exploit the initiative is you have to be prepared for success. And then how are you going to exploit success versus lose that? And I think that's probably my greatest failing. I really did not understand what we're getting into, because when I say, I think General Powell said this one, that when they were talking about the invasion, actually from Desert Storm days, it's kind of the Pier 1 rule: you break it, you own it. You break Iraq, you own it. Well, you take Baghdad, you own it. It's now yours. What are you going to do with it? And I'd say I think a lot of that caught a lot of us short. Hey, I just want to end on one thing here. It's kind of wrapping up what we talked about before about leadership and how important it is, and I think the key to the Army, the key to success. And some of you may have heard it. I think some of your schools are even in Fort Knox, but I have the Army profession slide. We're not going to put it up, and talks about the professionalism of the Army. But that's really the essence of who we are as an Army. That's what makes us who we are. It's our professionalism, our leaders, and our soldiers. We have great equipment, we have great doctrine, outstanding doctrine. Training, organizations, material, kit, that's all great. But what really sets us apart from everybody else is the professionalism of our soldiers and leaders and their dedication and commitment. And anybody that spends any time with the U.S. Army, that's what they come to take away from. They realize, you know what, you guys have great kit and all that, but it's something about the American soldier, there's something about your non-British officers. That's everybody that has interface with the American Army. They want our NCO Corps. Where do you get these great soldiers? Where do you get these great sergeants? Well, the fact of the matter is, as I tell folks, we build them. It's a do-it-yourself project. We don't laterally hire sergeants, out of IBM and come in. We don't poach people out of someplace else. We build our soldiers, we build our sergeants, our lieutenants, all that. We build them from the ground up. And so this whole thing, this professional Army, is a do-it-yourself project. And as I always remind people, we've been at this for a while. Okay, going on 243 years now. Okay, and again, as I always remind people, the birthday of the United States Army is 14 June 1775. The birthday of the United States is 4 July 1776. The United States Army is older than the United States of America. The Army that you are going to lead and the soldiers that you're going to lead are in an organization older than the republic you defend. Okay, and how did we get here for 243 years? We have been building on this thing year after year after year. And how do we build this great army, this do-it-yourself project, you do it soldier by soldier, sergeant by sergeant, lieutenant by lieutenant. That's how we do it. Soldier by soldier, sergeant by sergeant, lieutenant by lieutenant. And it got us took us 243 years to get here. The problem is you can lose it overnight. You can lose it overnight. And how do you lose it? Soldier by soldier, sergeant by sergeant, lieutenant by lieutenant. And where are soldiers, sergeants, and lieutenants in the Army? They're in platoons. Okay? They work for you. You own the seat corps of the Army. You own, when you become a lieutenant, platoon leader, section leader, whatever you do, you own the future of the Army. Because you own those things that make us so much different than anything else. You own the professionalism of the Army. You own those soldiers, sergeants, and you are one of those lieutenants. And that's what our Army is built on. It is what makes us the pride of the world, the envy of the world, quite honestly. And so just remember that when you go out to wherever you're going, active, guard, reserve, or whatever, you are going and you are now a leader in an organization that is not only older than the republic you defend, but is the organization upon which this republic was founded. This republic was founded on the backs and shoulders of the United States Army, of George Washington, the folks down at Valley Forge or whatever. If it were not for the United States Army, it would not be the United States of America. It would not be one as it exists today, and there won't be one in the future. The United States Army is the foundational institution of the United States. And you need to understand that, because that's how, excuse me, that's how important what you're about to do is. And don't doubt your ability to do that. You do not know everything you need to know, but you are well prepared. You are well prepared to be a lieutenant. Don't ever doubt your ability to be a lieutenant and a platoon leader, but no, you don't understand. You don't know all that you need to know, and you just need to constantly learn, because guess what? That's what your soldiers are grading you on. They just want to know why you do what you do, and are you going to be a good leader. So thanks for your service. God bless. Chris, thanks for your time.